attention. Welcome to the first annual Firewise Calaveras Festival. And I just wanted to take a quick moment. My name is Trina Wally. I'm the Executive Director for the Calaveras County Resource Conservation District. And this festival is nothing short of a true testament to this community of Calaveras County as a whole. The amount of volunteers that came through to make this happen. An event of this size usually takes 4 to 6 months to plan and execute, but the committee that put this together was able to make it happen after having the idea we should do this and help people know more about home defense, home hardening, and they did this in 6 weeks. And so that is very impressive, and I'd like to give the volunteers all a hand. And it really reminds me of one of my favorite quotes: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So it is one of my favorite quotes, and again, this festival is exactly what that is. And with that, I would like to welcome our first speaker, our board chair for the County Board of Supervisors, Martin Huberty.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Dawn, I owe you a call. I just saw your face and I went, oh, I never called you back. I'm so sorry. Good morning, everybody. Problem with the sound? Oh, there we go. I'll get closer. Thank you. It's a bit like preaching to the choir. Everybody here is such a professional, and ultimately, days like this are amazing just to see all the different agencies talking to each other, communicating. It was wonderful. Just right now, Karen, we were able to sort of figure out where we dropped the ball, and we wanted to do a rehearsal, an evacuation rehearsal with the Forest Meadows HOA, and we just solidified that this morning, so that's fantastic. I guess what I would say is that it's never been more important for all of you folks to be able to communicate with us, with our constituents. Nothing became more evident when the 2/7 lightning fire happened. And I was so incredibly impressed with the way our community actually responded to that fire. It's the first time that I've seen it from the ground level. And I would just have to say that the defensible space that the homeowners did, plus Ironstone, I mean, you can't thank them enough for doing the work that they did. And the sheriff was in constant communication with me, and I knew how important their defensible space was. So thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to see everybody communicating. That's what this is all about. And it's my great honor and privilege to introduce our Congressman, Mr. Tom McClintock.
Well, thank you, Supervisor. Thank all of you for coming today and for everything you're doing. I want to welcome you here to this great community discussion about the future of our mountain communities. And nothing is more important to our safety, our economy, and our quality of life in the Sierra than the management of our forests. An untended forest is no different than an untended garden. It's going to grow and grow until it chokes itself to death, and then it will succumb to disease, pestilence, wildfire. That's how nature gardens. And if you haven't noticed, nature is a lousy gardener. If you doubt that, just leave your own garden alone for 50 years and see what it looks like. Excess timber is going to come out of the forest in only one of two ways. Either loggers will carry it out or nature will burn it out. There is no other way. And nature doesn't care that it takes centuries for a forest to regrow. We mortals do. That's why we set up land management agencies like the U.S. Forest Service to remove excess timber before it can choke off the forest and be consumed by fire. Every year, foresters would go out into the forest, mark off surplus timber, and then we'd auction it off to logging companies who paid us to remove it. 25% of the revenues from those federal timber auctions went directly to our local communities like Calaveras County to compensate them for having all of that land taken off their tax rolls. And the other 75% of those proceeds went back into the Forest Service to take care of our forests. For a century, we enjoyed healthy, fire-resistant, and resilient forests and thriving local economies in our mountain communities. But then in the 1970s, we passed laws like the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and today a simple forest management plan takes an average of 4.5 years to complete. The environmental studies typically exceed 800 pages and cost millions of dollars, more than the value of the timber to be harvested. So since those laws were imposed, timber harvested off of the federal lands has fallen 80%. And with the federal timber supply cut off, the number of mills here in California has shrunk from 120 in 1981 to just 29 today. Now, at the turn of the last century, we formed the U.S. Forest Service to do the gardening in our forests by actively managing them. California's natural fire losses were reduced from more than 4 million acres a year to just 1/4 million acres a year. And that held steady throughout the 20th century. But the 2020 fire season just exceeded 4 million acres for the first time in more than a century. Now, that's not a new normal. That is the old normal returning because we abandoned our forests to neglect. We were told when these laws were imposed that they'd improve the forest environment. Well, today, after 50 years of experience with those laws, I think we're entitled to ask how the forest environment is doing, and that answer is damning. The answer is reflected in the price and availability of insurance in our mountain communities. As the risk goes up, the cost of insurance goes up. A generation ago, when we properly managed and thinned our forests, the risk was low and insurance prices were low. It shouldn't surprise anyone that as the risk has grown, insurance prices have grown to reflect that risk. You know, we get mad at the insurance companies. We ought to be livid with the politicians that caused this to happen by making forest management endlessly time-consuming and ultimately cost-prohibitive. You know, in many of our forests, you can actually see the boundary lines between private holdings of timber companies like SPI and the federal lands just by the condition of the forests on each side of the boundary. The private lands, which are not hampered by these same laws, are carefully tended, trees have the room they need to grow, brush is suppressed, and the lands are healthy, green, and thriving. The private timber owners make money keeping their forests in healthy condition, while the public lands lose tons of money and are in absolutely decrepit condition. Now, recently, we've been hearing this new excuse, well, it's not because of these foolish laws, but because of a century of fire suppression. If we had more fires, they wouldn't be as intense, so the reasoning goes. But the problem is not fire suppression. The problem is fire suppression combined with a de facto moratorium on logging. This maxim bears repeated. The excess timber is either carried out or it is burned out. You have to do one or the other. And carrying out is infinitely better. It's better for the forest, it's better for the air, it's better for the economy, and it's better for the environment. Now here's the good news, and there's a lot of it. We were able to get a categorical exclusion from NEPA for forest thinning projects in the Tahoe Basin in the 2016 WIN Act. We wanted it for the entire federal lands, but leftist opposition in the Senate limited it to the Tahoe Basin Management Unit. But in the 9 years since its enactment, it has reduced the study time for forest thinning projects from 4.5 years down to just 4 months. It's reduced the environmental reports from more than 800 pages down to a dozen. Timber harvested has increased from roughly 1 million board feet a year to 9 million board feet a year. The treated acreage has tripled, and the forests in the Tahoe Basin are slowly returning to fire resiliency. That literally saved the city of South Lake Tahoe from the Caldor fire 4 years ago. That fire quickly exploded out of control. It was bearing down on the city of South Lake Tahoe, but the fire hit a tract on the Pioneer Trail that had been treated under this new authority. It lay down, and the firefighters were able to stop it. South Lake Tahoe was saved. The town of Grizzly Flats was not so lucky. It's next door in the El Dorado National Forest that was not covered by this new authority. For more than a decade, land managers had tried to thin the trestle project that everyone knew was a clear threat to Grizzly Flats. It was held up by environmental laws and the endless litigation arising from them, and still had not been undertaken after nearly 10 years of study when the same Calaveras fire hit that tract, exploded, and incinerated the entire town. Now, we've already passed out of the House the Fix Our Forests Act, which extends these provisions to all of our national forests, as well as many other provisions to restore common sense and sound science and active management for our forests. Now, in the past, we've received, at best, the support of a handful of Democrats on such bills. This time, we got 60 Democratic votes in the House, far from a majority, but the largest portion for a forestry bill in my 17 years in the House. So what that vote tells us, I think, is that there's been a profound change in public awareness and public opinion on this issue, which is now influencing our representative institutions. Meanwhile, my H.R. 178 passed the House Natural Resources Committee earlier this year. It's now pending floor action. It requires the Federal Forest Service to aggressively attack fires the moment they're spotted before they can explode out of control. The Forest Service once had a policy of aggressive initial attack when a fire is first spotted, and an informal rule to put out little fires before they become great big fires. That policy was abandoned in 1972 until it caused the disastrous Yellowstone fire of 1988. The Reagan administration restored that rule. They called it the 10 a.m. rule. Unfortunately, Reagan left the next year, and this let burn policy returned. And it has cost us countless acres of forest land and countless millions of dollars of firefighting costs ever since. The Forest Service says, well, we don't have the resources to put out little fires, and I just have to point out that's fatuous nonsense. It's obviously far cheaper to put out 100 little fires with a single airdropper crew rather than to let one of them get out of control, requiring thousands of airdrops and hundreds of crews. And it's dangerous nonsense to monitor incipient fires in today's forest tinderbox, even if they pose no immediate danger. No person in his right mind would monitor a rattlesnake curled up in his bedroom because it wasn't doing much of anything. He'd kill that rattlesnake before it does. So this bill restores the 10 a.m. rule. It requires the Forest Service to launch aggressive initial attacks against all fires as soon as they're spotted. It forbids the Forest Service from preventing state and local fire agencies from attacking fires on federal land, and it requires any prescribed burn that exceeds the boundaries to be immediately extinguished. And it requires that deliberately set back fires be approved by the incident commander and not indiscriminately set by inexperienced teenage ground crews. In the last decade, fully 27% of our national forests have been destroyed by catastrophic fire. 10 years ago, you remember, the drive to Yosemite was through miles of pine and fir and cedar. Today, much of that drive is through brushland punctuated by dead tree trunks. This can't go on. And I believe we're approaching an historic inflection point where decades of madness are about to succumb to the destructive effect of their own policies. We know what policies produce healthy, resilient, and fire-resistant forests, and which ones produce catastrophic fire and destruction. Maybe it is time to restore the policies that we know from our own experience work. And the best news is that the destruction of our forests is not because of acts of God, but because of acts of government. And that's a choice we can change the moment we summon the political will to do so. It's still going to take many years to return our forests to the health and safety that they once enjoyed throughout the 20th century. But once we've changed the policies, as we've seen in the Tahoe Basin, we will be on our way to restoring the health of our forests. And hopefully we can do so before we run out of forests to burn. Thank you all for being here today and for everything you're doing in this cause.
Thank you. And I want to thank our elected officials for being out there and advocating for more funding to do the important work that needs to be done on our natural and working lands. So thank you for making time to come out for this today. But we really are here to celebrate our locals that have come together to make this happen. It started as Steve Wilcox and Rich Martin, who's with the Angels Camp Firewise community. They had just expanded their boundaries and they wanted to celebrate their Firewise community. And that discussion started about 6-7 weeks ago, and it quickly turned into inviting all of our Firewise communities to celebrate all of the success that they have done in each of their communities. And from there, it just kept growing. So with that, I want to thank those that were on the committee for this first annual event. Steve Wilcox, Rich Martin, Martha Rubin, Laura Bauman, Mike Van Landingham, and Tom Wrightson. These are the guys and gals that were out there on the ground, knocking on doors, rounding up vendors, and talking to all of our agencies and representatives. So thank you so much for all of your hard work these last 6 weeks. I think this is a great kickoff. And I'm really proud of our Resource Conservation District staff who jumped in and all hands on deck to help make this happen. So Mary, Catherine, Aaron, Walter, Sarah, Kaylee, who's not here today, they all participated in making this happen as well. And so thank you for all of your hard work. And with that, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if we didn't have a board of directors that supported the work that we're doing in the communities. So I'd like to introduce our board president, Julia Marsili, to give a few words about the Resource Conservation District.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see such an incredible turnout today. I also want to reiterate my thanks to our RCD staff, Trina, and the rest of the crew. Our RCD has grown tremendously over the past 6 years. So to see us here today is really exciting in a room full of people with a shared mission and vision. And thank you to the committee as well that put this event together. So the RCD really started, we are a special district in Calaveras County, and we started with a mission of assisting private landowners with projects that enhance and protect our lands. So historically, the RCD has really focused on wildfire mitigation. That is where the majority of our funding has come from. We have several of our funding partners in the room today as well. But increasingly as an RCD, we're recognizing this need to move toward a more holistic approach. So this includes projects that focus not just on fuel reduction and wildfire mitigation directly, but also on habitat restoration, watershed protection, and also working with our local producers here in Calaveras County. We're really recognizing that wildfire impacts everything in our natural and man-made environment. So taking one approach is not going to work. It's really going to integrate all of these different approaches and all of these different spaces together to build a more resilient Calaveras and surrounding counties and California. So this really speaks to why we are all here today. Fire-adapted communities really are key to building a resilient landscape. So this isn't just a CAL FIRE problem. This isn't just a local government problem or a Cal OES problem. This is solving these issues that we're facing as Calaveras landowners is going to take accountability from everyone. Everybody in this room. You see representatives from insurance companies, tree services, Cal OES, CAL FIRE, and also private homeowners. It's really going to take that wraparound accountability to create a true fire-adapted community. It's really buy-in from our homeowners. So taking accountability for your property, your neighbors, and that's what events like this are today, is to do that outreach, that education, and share what we know. Firewise communities are a key part of that, as are fire safe councils, resource conservation districts, and the like. Fire is a natural part of California landscape. There will never be a world where there is no fire on the landscape, nor should there be. However, we can learn to live safely alongside fire and reduce or eliminate that catastrophic loss. And that is what we're here to do today. That is our shared mission and our vision. So I want to thank all of you. I want to encourage you to get out in your communities. This is really going to be a bottom-up approach. We cannot rely on our government or on our government agencies to do this for us. So as homeowners, as people who love and live in Calaveras County, we have to take the first steps toward accountability and share our needs with our representatives and with our local agencies and organizations. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody's attendance and interest, and we hope to continue to grow this and to grow our Firewise communities and representation across the county.
I am visiting with Emily Kilgore from the Tuolumne Calaveras Cal Fire. She is the expert in home hardening, and she'll tell you a little bit more about herself and things that she has here at the table for Cal Fire.
I am Emily Kilgore from Cal Fire. I'm the Public Information Officer and Fire Prevention Specialist, and today we are talking about home hardening and defensible space, and we'll go into a little bit of detail about the upcoming Zone 0 requirements. But most importantly, it's good for you to know where to get information when we're having an emergency event in Calaveras County. And we would like you to use our link tree at link.tree/CalFireTCU. You can find a plethora of information, everything from the documents that we have at our table to the information in my presentation today, as well as our social media links and phone numbers to call when we do have an emergency in the county and you need vetted information.
So I noticed that, look, here's this animal sticker that you can put on your front door or window, that if you have animals inside, you make sure to list them here. So in case of fire, anybody coming to your house will know, look for your animals.
First responders would know that there's animals there, and then we can let animal control know that they either need to care for the animals or come take them to the shelter.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Here are a lot of the handouts that they have, and look on the website. So thank you so much, Emily, for being here, and we'll catch you for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon. I'm Emily Kilgore. I'm with Cal Fire Tuolumne Calaveras Unit. I'm the Public Information Officer and Fire Prevention Specialist. And I was asked to talk about defensible space and home hardening to prepare you for the wildfire that may come.
Next slide.
First, I'd like to talk to you about your role in fuel reduction, because that's basically what Public Resource Code 4291 is. So from the state side of things, Cal Fire, we like to do large-scale fuel reduction projects in strategic areas that we're going to be protecting multiple communities with the least amount of work and the least amount of funding. All of the work that we do, though, is on private property. We don't own any property, so we work with those property owners to do that work. The federal government kind of does the same thing. They're doing large-scale fuel reduction projects, looking at protecting large areas of land or communities. The counties tend to do that too, and sometimes they do it in partnership with some of the agencies like the RCDs, but they're looking at multiple communities, least amount of work, least amount of cost. Then you start getting into the fire safe councils in the area. Do you guys know what fire safe council you belong to here? No? It is the Yosemite Foothills Fire Safe Council. They do have a table here. They go after grant funding from various sources to do fuel reduction work and provide also opportunities, like they go after grant funding for those that are disabled or income eligible to do some of the work on private property. But they're looking to, most of the time, protect a single community or a single city. Then we have our Firewise communities. Do you guys know what Firewise community you're a part of? So depending on where you live, you may or may not be a part of a Firewise community, but what a Firewise community is a group of neighbors that have come together to help each other out to accomplish wildfire risk mitigation within basically their neighborhood. So that's a small scale fuel reduction project. They qualify to go after some of the grants that are available nationwide by being a part of a Firewise community, but it is a volunteer run organization that's within your direct area of where you live. So if you're not a part of one, that's kind of what today's event is about, is finding out what those resources are and how to get involved so that your neighbor's helping neighbors. And then there's Public Resource Code 4291, and that is your individual fuel reduction project on your property. and it is required by law. Does anybody know what the depth of fuel reduction from your home has to be? 5 feet, 6 feet, it's actually 100 feet is what's required by law, or to your property line, because we can't authorize you to go on neighboring property. But that's a small scale fuel reduction project around your property. We're going to go into that a little bit in a little bit of detail though. So next slide. And I'm going to show this video real quick. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to hear it. So this is a video of a demonstration that CAL FIRE partnered with IBHS back in September 2003. It was based on a study that IBHS did on the East Coast in 2011. And what they did at that time is they took full-size houses. You can't hear it because they don't have it set up to the sound system, but they took full-size houses in the original study, built them on a turntable, built a device that shot embers through a wind tunnel at the house on a turntable, and they identified the areas that were most prone to ignition for the structure. So this is a demonstration now that we did in 2023 that's very similar, but instead of using a wind tunnel, we just did it in the open environment. The house that was on the left, or the building on the left, is built out of traditional materials. The building on the right is Chapter 7A home hardening compliant, which is the WUI code. And you can see pretty quickly here after Daniel, basically what he's saying is that we know that homes that aren't hardened are going to ignite, and some of the ways that they do is from that 0 to 5 feet that people are traditionally not really considering when they're doing their home hardening and their defensible space. But you saw on that on the left that house ignited pretty quickly, and the one on the right it didn't, and that was because of the home hardening that had occurred. And the one on the right is actually available. You can go to the State Fair. We have it at the Camp Smokey exhibit, and it's all labeled with the appropriate home hardening requirements. We still use that since it survived that fire that we created. Next slide. So Defensible Space Zone 1, this is the concept that's kind of new to CAL FIRE and a lot of residents in California. However, it's not a new concept nationwide. NFPA has been talking about Zone 0 for as long as I can remember, and I've kind of been in this role in various areas for almost 25 years. So for as long as I can remember, NFPA has been talking about Zone 0 through the Firewise community program. And essentially what Zone 0 is if you were to touch the side of your house and stretch out your arms, that's roughly 5 feet. So everything within that 5 foot area that's combustible gets removed away from your home. The Board of Forestry has drafted what they're going to consider the exact legal language regarding Zone 0, and it's supposed to be finalized by the end of the year. So I'm not going to speculate on what is actually required at this point, but just keep in mind as you're doing your maintenance and your home hardening, you're looking at that Zone 0, 0 to 5, and it's roughly the span of what your arm is. And that includes like your building materials. There'll be guidance on that as well. Next slide. So Zone 0, when we say nothing combustible, we're saying replace any mulch and wood chips with gravel or pavers, create those hardened landscapes, remove any vegetation, whether it's green or not, away from your building. Things that people tend to forget in the Zone 0 is they park their vehicles, like their trailers and their RVs, and even some historic vehicles that they've had, they park them too close to their house. Their trash cans are usually right up against your house. Your wood piles for the winter for your wood burning stove are usually right up against the house. And you want those things at least 5 feet from your house, because what do you think the number one cause of a house igniting in a wildfire is? What's that? Embers. That's typically what's going to get to your house first. It's not going to be the actual flame front. The embers are going to precede that typically, and wherever leaves collect on your property, and around your house, that's where the embers are going to collect too. So focus on those areas when you're doing your defensible space. Next slide. And I kind of talked about this slide too. When I'm talking about the home hardening portion of Zone 0, I'm talking about your decks, your fences, those kinds of things. What is a deck in regards to fuel for a fire? It's 20-year-old cured lumber, right? It's gonna ignite pretty easily. Some of the direction that'll be coming out will tell you what you have to replace, how you have to replace it, when you have to replace it, those kinds of things. Generally speaking, if you're going to be doing work on your deck, consider at least replacing the first 5 feet with non-combustible materials. That's the guidance I've been kind of putting out there to people. You don't necessarily have to replace your entire deck. Insurance companies may have different regulations though, so you'd have to talk to them about what their requirement is. Next slide. And defensible space Zone 1. This is one that you guys should be already familiar with. Traditionally, it was 0 feet out to 30 feet. Now it's Zone 1 and it's going from 5 feet to 30 feet. So this is where you're gonna make sure you don't have any dead or dying plants or vegetation. You're not gonna have any mulch. You're gonna have a significant amount of spacing between any vegetation that you do have, and you're really gonna focus on some of your hardscaping techniques in your landscaping. You're going to make sure that your trees are trimmed a minimum of 6 feet from the ground, although I've been trying to educate people that if you have any growth underneath that tree or those limbs, the next limb from that vegetation should be 3 times that height. So if you had a bush that was 3 feet tall, that was underneath a tree that you wanted to keep maintained on your property, where should that first limb be at a minimum if you're keeping that bush? At 9 feet. So take that into consideration when you're doing your clearance. You also need to make sure that you're having spacing between your trees and between the vegetation canopy of a minimum of 10 feet. So when you start seeing branches growing together, what do you think the root structure under the ground is doing? It's growing together. And so that's also creating an environment of an unhealthy vegetation or fuel on your property because it's competing for all the same water, same sunlight, and same nutrients in that soil. So spacing is not only about the fire mitigation stuff, but it's also about the health of what you're keeping on your property. Next slide. And we talked about the pruning, and we talked about making sure all the dead and dying stuff is gone. There's more detail. If any of this is going by too fast or I'm talking too fast for you and you're not familiar, I have a great document, the Wildfire Action Plan, at my table that is basically exactly what is on these slides with a diagram to show you how to do it. Next slide. So defensible space Zone 2 starts where? At the 30-foot mark and extends out to that 100-foot. And then Zone 2, you can start to have more dense patches of vegetation on your property, but you're not going to have it contiguous like we talked about. You're still going to have spacing. You can have things like natural grass as long as it's maintained and it's no taller than 4 inches. And did I tell you guys that 4291 is a year-round compliance? It is. You have to maintain your 4291 compliance throughout the year. It's not something you only do in May and you don't look at it again until next year. You're supposed to be keeping up on it year-round. And at any time, our inspectors can come do an inspection on your property. So if they come in December and you're not in compliance, you can be put into the system with some education. And then after 3 non-compliance, you could be cited depending on what is going on your property. So just keep that in mind. The things that I'm talking about today are supposed to be done year-round, not just once a year. This slide also talks about the 3 times height rule with the limbs above vegetation that's underneath it. That diagram is also in the Wildfire Action Plan. Next slide. And then this slide is also talking about the spacing between your vegetation clusters and how to compensate for slope, because a lot of our homeowners in this area, we live on some kind of slope. And so when you're on a slope, Fire likes to run uphill, unlike people, right? It likes to move faster and burn faster uphill for a variety of reasons. So you need to have more spacing between your vegetation. And so this kind of tells you how to do that calculation for the slope that you're living on. Next slide. So home hardening. This is the one that a lot of people are starting to worry about because it can be very costly. New homes that are being built have to be built to these regulations, but as a property owner that's currently there, I'm advocating that as you're doing improvements to your home, so replacing the roof, replacing the deck, looking at new windows, that you're keeping fire safety in mind. I'm not saying you have to go out tomorrow and refinance your house for every little bit of equity and do it all at one time. What I am saying is as you're doing that work, do it to this compliance for the safety of your home, because defensible space alone is not going to protect your home. It has to be coupled with home hardening, and it has to be coupled with the firefighter's ability to fight the fire safely in your area. So addressing, how many of you have your address posted at your house and it's reflective or well lit? How many live on a long driveway? How many live on a long driveway that comes off of another road or has several turns before it gets to your house? How many have your address posted there? Yeah, you need it at all the intersections and at the main thoroughfare, because if we don't know which driveway is yours, how are we going to get to you if you need us? So it has to be well lit and or reflective and posted at all the intersections, not just on your specific house. And then the other thing we talk about for driveways and access is, I don't know if you've noticed, but every time CAL FIRE comes out with a new engine model with all the bells and whistles, it gets a little bit fatter and a little bit taller. The driveway access should be a minimum of 10 feet, but I've been advocating 12 in both directions because we need that space to get into your property. If it's too narrow, we're not going to be able to access it with a vehicle. We'll still make access by foot if we have to, and it's safe to do so. But if we can get in there with one of our engines, it's going to be a better outcome for the fight of the fire. Next. Roofing. So most roofs nowadays, but not all, especially as you go up the hill to some of the seasonal cabins, they have 7A compliant roofing, whether it's metal, tile, or composite roofing. Homes generally aren't allowed to build with shingle roofing. Those that do have them, we're recommending that you replace your shingles with 7A compliant materials. How many of you have a wood burning stove or a fireplace? How many of you guys have a spark arrestor on it? How big are the holes on your spark arrestor? Little teeny tiny? Yeah, they shouldn't be any bigger than or any smaller than a ½ inch, because then that defeats the purpose of the venting on the chimney. But ½ inch is the recommended for a chimney. Everything else is going to be less than that when I get to it. Next. Skylights and windows, we kind of treat the same. You want to make sure that they're dual pane. A lot of people are replacing their windows if they have a wood or metal frame with the vinyl option. I caution you in doing that as the cheaper option, even if it's dual pane, because what happens to vinyl when it gets hot? It melts, and then what happens to your window? It falls out, and then when it falls out, what happens to your house? It burns, and that's likely your biggest investment that you've made in your lifetime financially, right? So saving a little bit of money may not be the best way to look at home hardening when you're choosing your materials. And gutters. How many of you guys have gutters? How many of you guys are getting up there multiple times a year to clear them out? How many of you guys have some kind of gutter guard? How many of you guys are still cleaning out your gutters? Yeah, you should be doing that pretty regularly. There is some products on the market that are very good about blocking debris, even up to the sand that comes off of your composite roofing and only lets the water through, but you still have to be looking at the maintenance of those and cleaning them out every year. Next slide. Vents. Everybody has vents. You should be having some kind of vent in your attic area, and then if you have an underground space for your home, you should be having vents there. What do you think the suggested size of your metal mesh vent should be on your vent? 1/16 to 1/8. Now that's a change. That changed a couple years ago after some studies they did. We used to say 1/8 to 1/4, but 1/4 is too big, and in the study that they did, 1/8, anything smaller than A 16th is going to be prevent your airflow. So 16th to an 8th. Now, I know that we can go down to some of the local hardware stores and get vents that have mesh on them, but if you're not careful, you're going to end up buying some that have plastic mesh. And our local hardware stores do sell them that way. What you want is a metal mesh, because plastic does what? And then where's the embers going to go? And then what's going to happen in your house? Right. Eaves and soffits, if you have enclosed soffits, you just need to make sure that there isn't any gaps, less than 1/8 of an inch, and then the same thing with the sidewalls on your house. If you have any kind of cracks or openings leading into your house, those are places where embers could collect, right? So get them sealed up. Next slide. We already talked about windows and maybe avoiding the vinyl and having the dual pane windows. Mesh screens. You guys have screening. I like to have my windows open during the summer, especially with as hot as it gets here, and I don't like having to pay my PG&E bill for the AC, so I tend to have my stuff open, but I've replaced all of my screens with metal screening in the frame instead of the normal screen that's kind of plasticky, because it's going to be more resistant to fire. Next slide. Siding. How many of you guys know what kind of siding you have? Yeah, most people have your standard A siding, but it's wood. It's not non-combustible. There is products out there that look like wood that are non-combustible, that are like things like hardy board or stucco. Those would be better options for your siding. Fences, not a big problem here in our area, but it does happen. So if you have a fence attached to your house, if you don't do anything else in replacing your fence, at least replace the first 5 feet with something non-combustible. Chain link, there is some manufactured products that are non-combustible for fencing, but get that dried cured lumber away from your house. How many of you guys have a garage? When was the last time that you went in your garage, you shut all the doors, you turned on the lights, you went outside and you looked to see, or I said that backwards. When was the last time that you were in your garage in the dark, you closed it, but it was daylight outside and you looked at the seal around your garage door? Yeah, those dry out, they rot, and then that creates an area for what? Embers to get in. And what do we usually store in our garages? A lot of combustible materials, right? So periodically in your maintenance, you want to go make sure that that seal around your garage door is not able to be penetrated by embers when a fire comes, because they do dry out. And in my case, rodents ate a hole through it so they can get into my garage, so I had to replace it. Water supply. Water supply can be kind of a touchy concept here, because not everybody is on a municipal outlet and there's not hydrants in every neighborhood. If you do have a water supply that is accessible if needed, then we would like to know that it has a fire department connection on it. But there is limitations to having a water supply on your property if you're not on a main water system, like on a well. If the power goes out, the well's not going to be able to pump the water and replace it. Typically, the tanks from our wells are kind of small, and it is a single source. But if the water's there, we will use it. So make sure that we're aware, either by labeling, like on my house, I have little labels that says what water is able to be used if there's an emergency. Next slide. That was a lot of information, wasn't it? And how many times do you guys come to these events and we rattle off a whole bunch of websites to go check out, and then you never remember a single one of them? I'm going to help you with that. First, I'm going to show you this slide. All of the home hardening information that I talked about with the exact material recommendations and that kind of thing can be found in the Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide that I have over on my table. It's also available online. You don't even need to write the website down, because I'm going to help you out here. The other item that I have regarding home hardening on the table is the low-cost retrofit guide, and that could be a matter of opinion, because everybody's finances are different, but they've taken and considered the items on that list as being more low cost than some other things that need to be done on homes. So take a look at that list as well, and those are available. Next slide. It's burn season again. How many of you have a burn permit? How many of you know that you have to get your burn permit from a website now? Yep, this is the website, this is the QR code. You don't have to write it down or take a picture of it because I'm gonna help you still. But make sure that you get that every year on May 1st. Even if you were to get a permit on April 30th, on May 1st, you'd have to get a new one. So know that going into the year. And those will be good until we go into restrictions and they're suspended. Right now, we've gone back to permits required. At some point, we will probably go into open burning where you don't have to have a burn permit. Next slide. Here's how I'm saving you from the websites. If you write down just this one website and take this QR code, or walk over to my table and pick up the small gray business card, it'll take you to this website. This is our CAL FIRE link tree. It has anything and everything to prepare you for wildfire, from our social media sites to a link to OES, to get our burn permits, to request me for an event, to get information from the sheriff's office regarding evacuation. All of the websites that I should be giving you one at a time that are too much to write down have been consolidated into this one. You just look for the type of information that you're looking for the area that you're in, you click on it and it'll take you to the appropriate website. So I've done all the work for you. Take that from my table, put it on your refrigerator so that if we are having an emergency in our area or the area in which you live, being able to access vetted information during an emergency is critical. This will help you do that and go to the correct sites to do that and make it easy by putting it on your fridge or carrying it in your vehicle. Next slide. And then this is my contact information as well as all our social media sites. My phone number is down here on the left. If you are a resident that is not familiar with defensible space and you want someone to come out to your property and give you guidance in an educational way of what we would be looking for 4291, I do offer that service as I have time. You can call me, I'll arrange an appointment, I'll come out and I'll make those recommendations just like an inspector would, but it doesn't go into the system. It's strictly for education. Any other questions? I cannot hear you. Unincorporated lots where? That aren't cleared. Do they have a structure on them? If they don't have a structure on them, there isn't anything from the state side that can be done. Some of the local fire districts have ordinances that pertain to vacant lots, but the state law does not. Any other questions? I actually got done on time. That's rare. All right, if you have questions that are specific to your property or something comes up, you can get a hold of me or you can come talk to me over at my table. Thank you for listening.
Hi again. Hey, I'm here with Nate Oliver from New Cal Metals Inc., and he has an amazing assortment of fire prevention and vents. Some are fancy and embossed, all different sizes, some honeycombs. So, Nate, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us here in Calaveras.
Yeah, perfect.
So, I'm with New Cal Metals. My name's Nate Oliver. New Cal Metals is a manufacturer of wildfire defensive building materials. We make two different product lines. Vulcan Vents is a flame and ember product. Blocks embers with no activation required. Great airflow.
Yeah.
And at imminent failure, if the outside of your home gets 450 to 500 degrees, then the flame protection kicks in. This honeycomb matrix will puff up. So and seal the vent opening shut and protect the vulnerable areas of your home, the attic and the crawl space, from flames getting in. So Vulcan is a two-part protection, flame and ember. And then we've just released Firestorm building products. Mm-hmm. The mission of Firestorm really is to get wildfire defense for every home. The cost for Vulcan, it's a good cost, it's a moderate cost. Firestorm is much more affordable and much more accessible, but it's ember-focused strategy. So it doesn't really have the flame protection. Mm-hmm. It's really for superior ember protection.
Okay, they come in different sizes, actually. So these are pretty much standard size that houses would have. So it's ready-made. You just take off your old one, and you put on the new one.
You can leave with the flat vents that we make like this. You could leave your old vents on.
Oh.
Buy a box of these, screw them onto your house, and be done in an afternoon.
Oh, that's great.
Also comes in 50-foot rolls. So if you'd like to cut it to fit for custom projects or retrofitting, you can buy the 50-foot roll, share it with your neighbor.
That's a great idea. All right.
And then we feature a gutter guard as well. So for those
oh, these are gutter tops.
For rain gutters.
Wow, look at that. You can just buy these, put them right on top of your gutters, and then it keeps all of the pine needles and the leaves and everything out because the dried pine needles inside your gutters.
Huge risk. Huge risk. So that's our whole line here.
All right. Well, that's good. And I hope that you had a lot of people visiting today.
We did. It was quite busy.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I hope to see you next year.
Oh, you definitely will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, so I'm Pat McGreavy, and the second person listed there, and I'm a member of the Calaveras and forestry team, and we're a group of volunteers, and we started in 2015, right after the Butte Fire. So after the Butte Fire burned 70,000 acres in Calaveras County, we decided that we wanted to do something to prevent catastrophic fire in our county again. So that's how it all started. So my colleague is Jan Gray, who's a forester, and then you can see I've listed Tanner Logging. Well, there's Kaylee Tanner, the daughter of the two loggers, and we work with Kaylee all the time. But the reason I'm putting Tanner Logging down here is that the end of the talk, I'm going to show you what the Tanners are doing on their ranch, which is pretty spectacular. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about fire history in Calaveras County, and then some stuff about forest restoration, and then initial entry into one of our forests, and how we select where we're going to put a field break, and then what equipment and stuff we're going to go in with. And then I'm going to I'll show you a few slides about asking the question, do these fuel breaks really work? And then we're going to end with long-term maintenance, which is a terrible problem that we have to solve. So here we go. So here's this slide shows the number of the acreages that have been burned in Calaveras County starting in So this is 1950 and goes at 5-year intervals all the way to 2020. And so you can see normal background is less than 10,000 acres burned a year in Calaveras County. And the reason normally that there's a lot of ignitions going on, but our local fire districts and our CAL FIRE are getting to these fires quickly while they're small. And so these here are where our initial attack failed. And so we have, I think this is a Railroad Flat. See a Railroad Flat fire here, and then Old Gulch Fire. This one would be Dowd's 2001 fire, and here is the big one, the Butte Fire. And those fires generally grow while they're in the canyons. So that's where our initial first responders can't get down in those canyons, so the fire blows up down there, and our guys are waiting on the ridge to catch the fire when it comes out. And it gets out of hand, and then we have these catastrophes. So what we want to do is prevent the catastrophes. So we focus on putting fuel brakes on the rims of our canopies. So here are these here's these fires. There's Butte, and anyway, there's Dowds, and here's the Highway 4 corridor. So, and then here's all the houses in here that we want to protect. And so our fuel brakes that we've been working on go from Murphy's on up to the park, and over here on the other side of the county, they go from McCollum Hill up and beyond West Point. So this is what a lot of Calaveras County looks like. And so this is all the surface fuel, fire fuel, and then behind it is a lot of those small saplings, which serve as ladder fuel. So if a fire gets started down here, it lights the ladder fuel, those small saplings, and it eventually gets up into the canopy and of the big trees, and then we're in trouble. This is what a healthy forest what our forest should look like. So this is a picture was taken in 1926 over in Amador County, and you notice there's no fire fuel on the ground, and there's very little ladder fuel. So we could put a fire in there, and it would burn with a real low flame length, and something that our firefighters can get to and put out quickly. So our goal is, the question is, can we move our forest, which look like this, over and make them look like this? And the answer is, yeah, we can. So, and we have a toolbox, and in the toolbox, I split it up into two toolboxes. So one is initial entry, like the slide you just saw, where there's all that fuel, and then our other tools are for long-term maintenance. So after we go in and get rid of all the big stuff, the weeds are going to come back. And so if we're going to protect our investment, we got to treat those weeds as they grow back. So we can, on initial entry, like there's logging, mastication, brush raking, hand treatments, and so you could picture that picture I just showed you of Big Trees Park. You couldn't go in there probably with a masticator. There's no room to. You can't navigate your machinery around there, so it should probably be logged first, and then come in later after logging and do the mastications. Once we got it under control, we could masticate again. We could pile the weeds that come up and burn them. We could do a prescribed burn, which is a big burn at the landscape level, which CAL FIRE does frequently, and in our county they're doing more and more of it. There's herbicide application. There's goat grazing, and then shade from the trees, the big trees that we're leaving behind. So our goal is to make a shaded fuel growth. That's what the real goal is. So I'm going to show you some of the machinery that we use. So this is the masticator, and it's a pretty versatile piece of equipment. And up here, it's versatile because you can change the heads on the end of this boom. And so the head that they're using right now is shown here. And so this thing spins on a drum, and it spins at 2,700 RPMs. And then you can see these teeth here, and those teeth chew up the brush. And here's another example. This one here again spins at high frequent rotations, and it has different kinds of teeth here for doing different things. The end result looks like this. So I think this is a mechanical pin here is one of those saplings. So they probably took that big boom and went on top of the sapling and just drilled it right down. It would take 30 seconds, a minute at most, to take that sapling, a 20-foot, 25-foot sapling out, leaving this on the ground, and here's all the shreds that are left for mastication. So those shreds serve to preserve moisture and to suppress and control erosion, and then to suppress weed growth. Here's a rake, and so this gets mounted on the front of a bulldozer, and the operator digs the rake down in underneath the manzanita and the brush and pulls it up and takes all the brush out. They then pile it and they come back and burn. Unfortunately, I don't know if you've had any experience with this, but their contractors or people are always going to come back and burn the piles that they make, but they never do. This is really interesting. This is a self-propelled chipper, and it's being controlled by this fella right here. So there's the excavator back there. This is clearing a road with chainsaws, and all the branches are thrown on the road. This excavator comes along and has a grapple on the boom, and it grabs the brush and feeds it into the hopper, which is right there, and you can see the chips coming out the other end. Okay. So here's some of our results. So this is the Arnold wastewater treatment plant up in Avery, and this is initial entry before, lots of ground fuel and lots of laddered fuel. This is before, this is after. This is up in near on the north side of the county, before and after. I mean, you couldn't even see those trees when they were walking around in there. And then lastly, I have this is Jambray the Forester, and this is Dowd's Landing, which is up on Highway 4 outside of Arnold. And we've never seen a forester, a stand that's been this choked up with saplings. So in this case, we asked the contractor to come in with the masticator and take all this stuff out, but to leave the healthiest saplings behind that they can, and to space them out at 25 to 35 feet apart. So here we have the mulch on the ground, and hopefully these trees are going to thrive, and then we've released them into develop into a healthy forest. So what have we done? We, as I said before, when we started, we work on the two sides of the county. The south side is here, and this is Tuolumne County. This is Calaveras. This is the North Fork. Stanislaus River runs right down here, and this is the really steep canyon walls. Also, I show on here is the Dowd's fire in 2001, and over here is the Old Gulch fire. The Old Gulch fire actually came and crossed Highway 4 down at Forest Meadows in that area there. Now, all these colored polygons are our work that we've done since 2015. So the red polygons are work that's completed, we've finished. And the green are projects that we're working on right now. And the purple are projects that we're thinking about that we should do in the future. So at build out, we should have 10,000 acres of field break on the Highway 4 corridor. And we think we're protecting about 8,500 structures. The expected completion date is 2028, which is way too optimistic. And then all this red stuff, the weeds are going to start coming back. And we're going to have to then go into the maintenance phase. And maintenance, we think if we did maintenance every 10 years and we had 10,000 acres to do, means we have to do 1,000 acres every year. And using maybe we could get the job done for $1,000 an acre to come back and masticate again. And anyway, the bottom line is that to keep these fill breaks along Highway 4 functional, that we would need to spend $1 million a year. And the same thing goes on over in the north side of the county. So we go from McGreavy Hill up and beyond West Point, and here are all the fill breaks that we're not as well developed on Highway 26 as we are on Highway 4. So we have this purple means that these are the projects that we want to do in the future. So we have a lot of work to do over here. But the bottom line is that over in Highway 26, at build out, we would have about, I think it's 5,000 acres. And it would cost $500,000 to maintain those fill breaks every year. So take the whole of Calaveras County, it would take $1,500,000 a year to maintain the functionality of the fuel breaks that we're putting in right now. Oh, sure.
Is there funding for annual?
That's, you hit the nail on it. We were hoping that you were going to contribute.
Where's that money going to come from? Use mine.
Be patient. We're going to get to that right
Oh, okay.
So, it's right there. So, okay.
We should move that.
So the first question is, do fill breaks work? So here's up at, this is Calaveras County, this is Amador County, this is Highway 88, this is the Tiger Creek powerhouse over here, and this is Buckhorn, a community called Buckhorn. And where I'm circling right here, there's about 395 structures, probably houses. And this is, so when we start a project, we say, well, what assets do we need to protect? So we would want to protect these houses here, and we're interested in protecting the Tiger Creek powerhouse. And then over here is all the SPI and Forest Service timberlands. And then finally, we have the McGreavy River, which is a domestic source of water for some 1.2 million services in the East Bay. So we think that when we look at all the assets, that this is a good candidate to put our fill breaks in here. So then we look at fire history, and there's been 2 fires here. This fire here was in 1964, and then this one here, the powerhouse fire, was in 2004. So, and now we've just had another fire. So the bottom line is that in this canyon here, we've had 3 fires in 60 years. So we said, okay, let's put in some structures to protect the assets. So these polygons here are projects that we've completed. And this is called the Tiger Creek fuel break. And the reason that they're not continuous is because of the really steep terrain as you get down close to the river. So we take our masticators and we go down as far as we can. That's safe. So now we have, this has all been in place in 2020, between blah, blah, blah. Somewhere I thought I had, I think 2022, maybe these were done. This is what it looked like before, initial entry. this is what the fuel break looked like after they masticated it, before and after. So the fire came on August 8th of this year, and it started right there. This is Calaveras County. This is Skull Flat Road and West Point areas here. This is the river. This road here, that's a road, and the fire, all those fires I showed you probably started on the road, maybe here. You can see this is all burned, and the wind is carrying it up towards Buckhorn, which is over here. I was pretty impressed that in the first 2 hours, let's see, in the first 2 hours, the fire, that 84 acres had already burned. Here it is right here. So in the first 2 hours, it burned something like that. But then the fire hit the fuel break, and the intensity of the fire diminished dramatically. The flame lengths went down, and our fire suppression control folks could get a handle on it, and they cleared out. So you say, well, is it worth it to build these fuel breaks because they're so expensive? Well, each of these structures over here, on average in Amador County, a house costs $423,000. So an our fuel break cost, well, let's just say $1 million. So the point is that this fuel break, every house that we save that our citizens $500,000. If the fuel break, if the fire got away and went up here and burned the 395 houses, the cost would be, to replace them would be $167 million. So think Pacific Palisades, so what we're doing is an insurance policy. So we think it's a lot of money, but it could be to our advantage in the long term. So I just showed you what the fuel bricks look like after initial entry, after they were masticated. So the question is now, how are we going to keep the fuel bricks functional forever, right? In perpetuity, forever. So I want to take you over across the river back to Calaveras County, and in 2013, the BLM put in a fuel break for $183,000. So we've been, I go there frequently, once a year, maybe more. And right now, the brush is this tall. It's been 12 years. So I've written a grant application, and the total cost to retreat it and get it back to that park-like appearance, the fuel break where they want, is going to cost $500,000. And when I did the math and all this earlier this year, I was astounded. I'm saying, well, this isn't going to work. We're going to, all these fuel breaks that we put in, we're going to have to pay this kind of money to maintain it. And so what we're going to do now is change our prescriptions. So we're going to go in and masticate like we have in the past. But a year later, we're going to come back with herbicide. And we're going to hit the weeds where they're really small and spot spray them and see if that's going to help us out.
Pat, why has the cost of mastication gone up so high?
I think Peter's a contractor. He runs.
Okay, it's your fault.
Cost of constantly going up, cost of just running business going up multiple times a year for us, and then the fuel costs constantly going up. Not only those costs, but then the vendors that we buy these equipment from. I bought a Bobcat in 2000, It'd be $64,000 for it. I just bought a brand new one this year and paid $174,000.
Wow.
Same machine. So my cost has to go up because it's
Gotcha.
So those big masticators that I showed you, that's $500,000. And then there's the diesel that goes. So where the deal I built this fuel break at Lily Gap is that square right there. And I'm going to show you what it looks like 12 years after. So there it is. So we got, here's the brush that goes up to 5 feet tall. And here's another area with a bunch of dead trees. This is not a healthy forest. It's no longer functional for a fuel break at all. So we, the guy you're looking at right now, has wasted $183,000 in fuel because we didn't come back and maintain. So all this work that we've done, which probably adds up to $20 million now, somewhere in there. If we don't maintain it, it's all going to be gone in 2 years. Oh, okay. This is, I'm going to switch now and we're going to talk about maintenance. And we're going to talk about Tanner logging. And this is, Tanners have a vineyard right here. So they own this polygon here, and they own this polygon here. This polygon here is pictured here. So this is high. So when this fire happened on the 2nd of September, that was only 2 months ago or something, I was watching it all, following it along on the internet. And I kept noticing that this area, the vineyard down here, didn't burn. And the fire went around this way. And well, here's the polygon of the fire, right? That reddish stuff there. So, but this didn't burn. So I called up Dick Tanner, and he took me out here, and we went. There's the vineyard. Now they're taking their vineyard out because the wine market has fallen off. So they're removing the vineyard, and here's the vines sitting right there. And you notice none of the vineyard burned, and behind is everything that burned. So when you drive up Highway 24, look out your left window, and you're going to see this exact stuff. So why didn't the vineyard burn? And while they were taking the vineyard apart, they brought in their goats. They have 145 goats, and they have one dog, and he's overworked. And that's Dick Tanner there. So the grass, the goats have eaten the grass so thin that it won't carry a fire anymore. So the fire came and hit the graves and went around it. So now Dick, I don't know what to say. She wants me to quit. So he took me up to his other place. And here's where they masticated in 2019, big time brush. Then they applied herbicide a year later. And then from then on, it was the mulch on the ground, there was shade, and there was goat grazing. And so this is after they started, after 5 or 6 years, that's what it looks like. So that's what we're going to start doing. We're going to do just exactly what they did. I'll show you just one other shot here, maybe. Same treatment here. This fence here, this is Tanner land. This fence over here is California. And they went in with a brush rake, the Tanners did, and pulled out all of that brush and piled it off to the side. This is 3 years later. You know, so the bottom line is, I'll wind it up right now because we're running out of time. The bottom line is, I think what Tanner's teaching us You gotta go out and look at your field rate every year, if not more. So like BLM never went out to the Lily Gap field rate that I showed you, or McKay's. They don't go out there very often. So, but the tanners are out there every day. So they feed the dog, they look at their goats, and then they see the brush coming out. They funded it themselves, so they can treat that brush immediately, or quickly. At Lily Gap, where I told you I've got this $1 million grant that I wrote, nobody went out there. Now it's all gone, and now it's all grown back. The tanners took care of their problem in a month or two. It's going to take us 4 years, 3 years to write the environmental documents and go out and get a contractor and then to actually treat it. So any maintenance program has to be done quickly. You know, you can't, this grant system we're working on now isn't the answer. So I'm working with county, and maybe county will take the responsibility and get a pool of money which they can, see a problem on a field rate and treat it immediately. So thanks, I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work.
Somebody.
Okay, everybody, you have 2 minutes to get out. What are you going to take with you? Depends on the weather. Okay. What else? Pets. You got 2 minutes. What else? Winter gear? Jacket? Okay. Anything else? Money. Perfect. So documents. So your home lease, your insurance, all of those things, right? Okay, you got 2 minutes. Okay, we're winding down.
My laptop.
Your computer. Very good. Exactly. Everything's on there. Okay. Anybody have a go bag?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So the thing is, we don't think about it. The reality is, you may only have 2 minutes to get out. In 2017, I don't know if any of you heard about the Tubbs fire that was in Sonoma County, in Coffey Park. I have family there. My kids are there. My niece was in Coffey Park. She gets a call from her sister at 2 a.m. who said, get out now, the fire's coming. She grabbed my kids, my 5-year-old and 2-year-old niece and nephew, threw them in the car with just their pajamas, nothing else. 15 minutes later, their home burned to the ground. They did not have 2 minutes to get out. So it's important to remember that when you're preparing. For that fire, they got no phone call. They got no alert from the city because they were afraid if they sent out an alert that everyone would get in their cars and there would be a bottleneck and nobody would get out, right? So 5,600 structures burned to the ground, were destroyed. Half of those were homes. 36,000 plus acres burned. 22 people died, and it took 23 days to get it out. In our region, in Calaveras County, Amador County, Tuolumne County, and Alpine County, which are the 4 counties that our region takes care of, our past experience tells us that we face a number of hazards, including that have huge impacts on our community. Wildfires is part of life here. We know that. The Butte Fire, how many remember the Butte Fire? That one was in 2015 on September 9th. It lasted for 22 days. It burned over 70,000 acres. It destroyed 475 homes, 375 outbuildings, 45 other structures, and 2 people died. The 2 people that died because they refused to leave their home, and so they were burned in the fire. The Calaveras fire on August 14th of 2021 was not fully contained until October 21st. It was the largest fire in California that year. It destroyed 1,000 acres, or 1,000 structures, covered 221,000 acres, or 347 square miles. We had to evacuate 53,000 people, and it went through 3 counties, Amador, El Dorado, and Alpine, before it was all done. Remember the Electra fire on 4th of July, 2022? That started in Moke Hill, burned 4,500 acres over 24 days, and over 100 people had to evacuate. So if you haven't figured it out by now, we are in wildfire country. Welcome to Calaveras County. When I first moved here from Sonoma County, I lived in Calaveras County. It's a great county. I had horses, I had everything here. And so Calaveras County was initially home for me when I first moved here from Sonoma County. So again, in our county, the things that we face mostly are wildfire. We also have home fires, which, those are just the result of someone having a fire in their home. We also could have an earthquake. We do have thunderstorms, and occasionally we have winter storms, which might cause flooding, those kind of things. A lot of people assume that somebody's going to be there to help you. However, resources just aren't there to support everyone at the same time. The truth is, we have to depend on ourselves first. Roads may be impassable, utilities may be unavailable, hospitals and first responders could be overwhelmed, and banks, grocery stores, gas stations, schools, workplaces may be closed for days. So the thing we want you to remember is to not count on someone else coming to save you. We want you to know, though, that you can prepare. Each of us can prepare ourselves and our households for any disaster. Preparing will help you stay safe. It'll help you to adapt to challenges. And in the end, it'll help you recover, which is one of the key things that the Red Cross is all about, is we do come in and help you at the immediate disaster with evacuation shelters, assistance for home fire. But the goal of the Red Cross is to help you recover and to move on and to be able to start looking at the future. So what is a wildfire exactly? So it's an unplanned, unwanted fire burning in a natural area, usually the forest or grandlands or prairies. Up here it goes in the forest. It's unpredictable, fast-moving, and destructive. Most of our fires are driven by wind and fueled by unhealthy or dying trees. Flying embers can start and spread fires. Do you know a flying ember has been known to travel at least a mile and even more? We've heard of them flying as far as 5 miles away and starting new fires. It's a long-term ecological and has an economic impact on the community. Common causes of fire. Prevention is critical as people cause 85% of wildfires. They do it by having burning debris when we do our fires, right, to mitigate our shrubs and stuff. Using equipment improperly, like using a mower when it's in the middle of wildfire season. Discarding cigarettes carelessly out of your car or around your property. Unattended campfires, and we even have arson. So how can we prevent them? First of all, I think this is a really important one because we have so much grass out there. We have so many people that have property where you're driving across your property and the grasses. Your catalytic converter can start a grass fire. So it's really important to stay on the roads. Don't drive through long grass because you could start a fire that way. Using equipment responsibly. If you have to weed eat, you don't want to use a mower that could hit a rock or something and start a fire. You want to use a weed eater that has plastic, the plastic threading so that when you're doing that, you're not starting a fire. You want to do it in the morning when it's cool, not when it's hot, right? There's certain things we've all learned, so it's really important that we do that. Use caution anytime you're using fire. If you're having a barbecue, I had a client whose house burned down because they were having a barbecue on his deck, and he had a propane bottle, and the propane bottle jumped out of the container. He had gone in the house, it started the deck on fire, and his house burned down. He was just trying to barbecue dinner. If residential burning is allowed and you're able to do that, use caution. I had a neighbor over in Paloma who was burning debris, and he left and went in the house, and when he came back, it was burning 5 acres of his property. And he was only a couple houses up from my house where I had all my animals. And he almost started a fire. So you need to stay on it, watch it, don't leave it. I know this is all stuff you've probably heard from CAL FIRE, but part of what the Red Cross does is help with prevention and help reminding people, like, how do we keep ourselves safe? What are the things, and reminding you of those things. You want to make sure you store combustible or flammable materials away from the house and in improved containers. Like, don't have gasoline in a soda pop, jar, right? Let's keep it in the gas can where it belongs. I will tell you that pretty much everything that I talk about today, I have a story about it and how someone's house is burned down because of it. So if you haven't realized it yet, you probably will, but I'm pretty passionate about educating people on this because I have so much personal experience with it. My very first fire that I experienced when I was 10 years old was watching my dad on the roof of my house that we were evacuating from because the fire was coming over the hill. Now, not to date myself, but that was like 60 years ago. So we didn't have the kind of firefighting we have today. We didn't have planes then, right? So that was really scary. So I still have PTSD about that. Do not use your grill during fire weather conditions. Again, we don't want to start a fire and burn your house down. Always have a fire extinguisher nearby if you are barbecuing. It's really important because if something starts and you have your fire extinguisher, you can put it out. One of the things, I just bought these all for my kids, are fire blankets. Those fire blankets are amazing and they're not that expensive. I have a fire blanket under my sink, I have one in my car, I have them everywhere because if a fire starts, if I'm on it right away, I can put it out myself and it doesn't get so big I have to call the fire department. So there's things you can do to prepare your home. Remove debris, brush, and other flammable material that are near your home. The CAL FIRE talk about defensible space. You don't want anything closer to 30 feet up to your home. If you have brush and stuff like that, you need to cut that back and get it away from your house. That's how fires start. If an ember comes and starts the brush next to your house goes up next. Regularly clean debris from your roofs and gutters. That's really important. Again, when those embers come flying over your house, and if they land in your gutter, it's going to start a fire. So make sure you clean them out. If you can get the gutter guards, that's a great thing to do. Use fire-resistant construction materials if you're building anything. If you're putting in a shed, make sure that it is fireproof. Landscape with fire-resistant plants and materials. There are plants that are resistant. I just did one of the things that the Red Cross does is we come out and we do an assessment of your home. Not only do we come in and install free smoke alarms to your home, but we will also walk around your home and do an assessment and tell you where things should be moved away. I just went to a home where they had manzanita up against their house, and they were in a mobile home park. Probably not a good idea. Manzanita is one of the hottest, fastest, most combustible brushes you can have. So, really go home and look at what kind of plants do you have around your house. I know a lot of us spend a lot of time, I do a lot of planting. Maybe only half of it ever survives, but I try. But look at what you're planting and make sure that it is fire resistant. The goal is to save your home. Ensure that your home and neighborhood is clearly marked with street names and numbers, right? I just did a home fire. I'm also a dispatcher for Red Cross. So if we get a home fire in Calaveras County, it goes to national headquarters. They call me and I dispatch a team to go out and help the home fire, the residents. I just had a home fire where the family lived out on someone's property with no address, no marker. It was off grid. Now, luckily the fire department got there, but the house was gone, right? Because they couldn't find them. So make sure that your house marker is clearly marked with your address. Your street names are clearly marked. I know when you do Firewise projects, and I think Marcy, you can vouch for this, is the fire department wants to know that there's clearly marked numbers on your house, the streets are marked clearly, all of that. So even if you're not in a Firewise development or home community, make sure that that's done so that if you have a fire, the fire department can find you. And review your insurance coverage. I'm not going to get into insurance. I pay a fortune just like everybody else. I moved from Pioneer down to Jackson, and guess what? I still had to, before they even insure my house in downtown Jackson, I had to trim all my trees. I had to clear off all the debris. We had to cut back a bunch of stuff. So I get it. But review it, because they are trying to work within the state to change some of it, but it's worth checking as often as possible. I've had a lot of homeowners that their mortgages have been paid off, so they've made the decision to not renew their insurance, and unfortunately their houses are burned down and now they have no home. So I know it's hard, but do what you can. You know, it's just worth looking at it, seeing what you can do. I know that State Farm in Jackson, the woman who owns the insurance company there, is pretty proactive in trying to help people find insurance. She may not be the cheapest, but she's willing to help you look. So if you talk to some of the insurance agents, they are willing to help. And I know we've got insurance agents here today, so talk to them. They may have some resources for you. It's worth checking. So one of the big things that the Red Cross does is we promote getting a bag and being prepared, making a plan, and being informed. So we talk about go bags. It's funny, I did a presentation not too long ago, and the first thing that everyone talks about go bags. It's like, that's so cool, everyone's talking about go bags, but no one knows what to put in them, right? So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. And some of it you've already talked about today, your documents and all those things, right? I just bought this really cool thing. It's like a briefcase, and all my papers fit in it. And it's literally fireproof. It's not a box, it's like a briefcase. And I can just pick it up and walk out the door with it, right? So there are options like that. So again, you want to get a kit, we need to make a plan, and then we're going to talk about what to do next. So in your household kit, the thing you want to remember initially is you want enough in your kit to go for 3 days. Okay, initially. Because maybe when there's just a warning, they're going to have you or just stay in place until they know where the fire's going. But you want to have that 3-day supply in case the power goes out or something like that. And it's the bag you're going to grab if you need to go, right? If they finally say, you got to go now, they knock on your door. A lot of times what happens is the sheriff comes and knocks on your door and said, you got to go now. So that bag should be ready to go. It should be at least 3 days worth of whatever it is that's most important to you. There's different philosophies. Some say just pluck a big bag for the whole family. In my household, everybody has their own bag. I want my own stuff. I want my own medications. I want my own makeup. I want my own toothbrush. And so I have my bag. My husband has his bag. I have a bag for my dogs. I'm a certified service dog trainer of 40 years. That's my background. My dogs have their own go bag with their food bowls and food and their medications and everything. My chickens, Laverne and Shirley, have their own go bag. We are ready to go. You want to customize it to what's important to you, your medications, your insurance papers, your documents, your insurance papers. I want to also tell you this is from the standpoint, I'm going to change hats for a second as someone who does home fires. When we go out to a home fire, what we need from you in order to help you is we need 3 things to happen. 1, we need to verify that you actually had a fire that destroyed your home. And usually the fire department will tell us that. Or we come out and we look and we see it ourselves. Second is, I have to have proof of ID. I need to know who you are. Just because you tell me you're Louise, how do I know that if you can't show me something that says that's who you are, right? So I need a picture ID, or if you're a vet, I need your vet ID to say, this is who I am. The third thing I need is proof that you actually lived in that residence before it burned down. So in your go bag, make sure you have copies of your ID, your residency. If you rent a home, have a copy of your lease, have your landlord's name, have those tools, those things you need, so that when I come out to help you and give you money, I can get from you everything I need to do that. If I can't prove who you are, I can't help you. Okay, so that was my, what we call DAT, Disaster Action Team. That's who I am. And that's what I do, is we come out, we try to help you with money. It's not a lot of money, but you know what? It'll get you a hotel room from a couple nights. It might replace some of your clothes that burned. It might replace some of your, we also have health services, mental health services, and spiritual health, so that we can help replace medications or prescriptions or durable goods like walkers and wheelchairs and things like that. But I have to have those proofs of ID in order to be able to help you. Make sense? Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to talk fast because I have limited time here. Okay, so what are the things we definitely want to have ready in our go bags? Okay, so here's my advice. You've initially put together a bag for 3 days, and then you start adding to it so you have enough supplies for up to 2 weeks. Because if you have to evacuate, you may not get to go home right away. It may be longer than 3 days. So you may need more supplies than that initial 3 days, right? How many, okay, wait. Hang on 1 minute. How much water do you need? 1 gallon per day per person. Now, half of that is for drinking. The other half is for sanitary, for cleaning, right? If it's hot outside, like we can get hot, like 90s and 100s here, you need much more water. If you have people that are compromised in some way, for example, diabetes or other things, they maybe have physical disabilities, they may need more water. So make sure you have enough supplied for that. As long as you keep it in your garage, in like not in the sun, then the plastic will hold together and the water stays pure. But you don't want it sitting in the sun. If you have your water sitting in the sun that you're stored, then the plastic bottles start to break down. So just know that. Things you should have are canned goods. By the way, in my dog go bag, I have a can opener. Because what if there's no power? What if I can't use my electric can opener? So I have a manual can opener. You might want to have a radio that helps you listen to the weather, so you know what if the winds are picking up, or if the wind has changed directions. Because if it's changed directions, instead of going away from you, maybe it's coming towards you. You might want to also have a first aid kit. You want to have any prescription medications that are important to you. You should also have copies of your prescriptions in case you run out, so that you can get them replaced at the pharmacy. Okay. Let's see, other things. You might want to have your passport, birth certificate, social security card, insurance policy, your mortgage. Other things, if you have grandchildren or children, you want to have pictures of your kids, but you should retake those pictures every 6 months, because why? Our kids grow and they start to change, and you want to have the most current photo in case you need to have help finding those kids, right? Okay. Any questions so far? I'm just trying to talk fast and we can go through it. Yeah.
I used to get copies of prescriptions. Nowadays, you can never see a prescription. It goes from the doctor straight to the pharmacy.
Right. When you get it from the pharmacy, though, there's usually a copy of it that comes with your medication when you pick it up on your receipt, if you look at it. So you might take a picture of that. But the good news is you should be able to call your pharmacy, right, or your doctor. So
I have a whole medical list that's got
good.
every single medication that I
Perfect.
Is that good enough?
It is. Yeah, as long as you know, and again, you make sure you have your doctor's phone number, make sure you have your pharmacy's phone number, because they should have those records as well. Okay. So these are the other things I just talked about that are important to have. Our documents are really important, so I would make that a priority of the things that you get together right away, because if you were like me, I had to dig around. I had to go look over here and look in that file cabinet, then go in that one. The other thing to do is make photocopies of them and then put them on a flash drive or a thumb drive. Or what I did was all my important stuff like my will and my trust and all that, I emailed copies to my girls, to my adult girls, so that they have those as well.
But now saying put it on the cloud.
You can put it in the cloud.
I'm not sure quite how to do that because I either copy or I send an email. I don't know whether it's going to the cloud.
Yeah, so that would be something you need to talk to someone with IT experience to do that. And I don't have a resource for that right now. Yes, yeah, so check next door. They can, there's a company next door that can help you understand how to do that. So, yeah, so check next door. There's lots of resources. The other thing I want to remind you is one of the things that happens during a wildfire is the cell towers may go down. We may not have cell service, right? So what you want to do, anything really important, like for example, you want to have a written list of who are your contacts, who are your family that you need to contact if you have to evacuate, or the people you need to call who you're going to go stay with. Whatever, have it written on a piece of paper in your wallet, not just in your phone. Right? Like right now, if something happened, all of my Red Cross people that I know, there's like 500 of them, are all on my phone. I don't have any of their numbers written down, but I do have my husband's phone number, my daughter's phone numbers, my doctor's phone numbers. I have those important ones are written down at my disposal. Because if I can't get on the internet for a few days, you're going to need to have that information, not just on the internet, not even in the cloud, because you may not be able to get to the cloud in that if that happens, okay? You know, it's hard is those things we don't think about. We become so ingrained in technology that we forget that technology isn't always going to be there. At least not, you know, it could. When I did a shelter, I did one in Valley Springs. It was like the first shelter I did, I forget now. It was at the senior center downtown. Anyway, the power was out at the senior center. We couldn't record any of our clients' information in our computer so we could help them. So what we did is we had to take all that information, and then I went over to Starbucks and sat in there, drank coffee, and put everything in the computer because that was the only place I could get on the internet, right? So you just never know. It's just good to remember that it may not always be there. Okay, so what we want you to do, so we've done the go bag thing, now we want you to plan. Start planning now, like where are you going to go? Who are you going to talk to? Who are the people that you might be able to stay with if something happens and you can't get to your home, right? So you want to ask friends and relatives outside of the area if you can stay with them. We want you to have two types of resources. One would be someone that's maybe not so far away, like maybe you can't get back up to Copperopolis or West Point, but you can get to Jackson or you can get to Valley Springs, right? So have someone nearby in Valley Springs or that area where you could go stay. Talk to them ahead of time and say, if I need you, can I come stay with you? If there's a wildfire in Calaveras County, like the Butte fire that was just going crazy, then you may need to have a place to stay outside of Calaveras County. So start looking at hotels and places where you can go that and have that information handy so that if you need to be outside of the area, you have a place to go. The other thing we want you to do is make sure that everyone in your family knows those places. You should have the same list. You know, tell your family, when during the Caldor fire in Pioneer, I evacuated my horses and all my large animals. I left my husband and my dogs at home. I had parked my car facing out the driveway, and I told my husband, I said, okay, we're only in a warning, but if it gets worse than that, because I had to go evacuate everyone else's horses from the fire, because that's what I did, was evacuation teams, evacuating large animals. I said, just throw the dogs in the car and leave. And we're going to meet here, right? So we had a plan, like if something happened and I couldn't get back up to home, that we were going to gather and meet at, the Quality Inn and wherever it was, okay? So specifically have a plan on where you're going to meet up with your family if you can't get back home. Really important. Check with hotels, motels, campgrounds. I did learn under the last fire that they actually, one of the campgrounds with one of the lakes, forget which one, is it Hogan or one of them? It used to be they would let people come in with their trailers. They didn't let them do that this last time. So you should know what other trailer parks can you go to where you can tow your trailer, because you may not get into the one you think you can.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a transportation plan. When there was the fire just recently between Angels and Murphys, okay, I'm sort of a long way away, but it's still sort of like, I'm aware of it and I want to be prepared. And I have my go bag, I have everything all ready, but my car's in the shop getting fixed. I have no transportation.
Right.
What do I do?
That's what you need to work on. You need to have that contingency plan. Up here we don't really have taxis, so we may have transportation groups. What's it called, Paul, that you work with? Amador Transit in Amador County is sometimes available, but if the fire's coming down, they can't even go there. So you should have a contingency plan.
Call a friend or something.
Call a friend, exactly.
If you call 911 and say you don't have evacuation, you can't get out, the fire agency will send up a fire truck to get you out.
I just had a gentleman at our last fire that the Cal Fire actually put him in their truck and drove him down because his family drove out without him in the middle of the Murphy fire, left him behind. I think they thought they'd come back and get him, and then they couldn't. So he ended up getting a ride from Cal Fire, and they brought him in. He was on oxygen and used a wheelchair. So he couldn't have gotten out on his own. Okay, I have to hurry because I know our time is at an end here.
You're fine.
Talking as fast as I can. There was something I just thought about. One thing I want to tell you, did I already cover this? Possibly, is in a fire, if there's a wildfire and you've been told to evacuate, just do it. Don't wait. Just leave. If it's a warning, you should leave. Because if you're getting a warning, they're pretty sure you're going to be in the way if the fire keeps moving the direction it's moving or if the wind changes. So don't wait. Just leave. It's better to be safe than sorry. But what I also want to tell you is don't be a cowboy. Excuse, I'm not trying to downgrade anyone because I'm a cowgirl. Don't stay and fight the fire. Don't stay and water down your roof. Does anyone know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because they won't fight the fire at your house, because they will not do. So most of our fires are successfully fought now in all of our counties because of the fire being able to fly over and drop water and retardant, right? The airplanes are what are putting out our fires. If you stay home and are trying to fight your own fire, guess what? They won't fly over your house. They're not going to fight the fire in your neighborhood because they can't. Because they will not drop retardant or water because of the speeds that they're going over your home will hurt you. So they will not drop or do drops. And I actually confirmed this with CAL FIRE a couple weeks ago. They will not do drops if they think there's someone on the ground at a house fighting a fire. They will not come, right? So you're not only hurting yourself, but you're probably preventing them from fighting the fire for your neighbors as well. Yes?
I actually had somebody come up to our table and, you know, he said he'd done all the various levels of preparedness and he had everything all sorted out and, you know, absolutely he was really well educated, he knew what he was doing and he would not leave ever.
Right, which means that all the other neighbors aren't going to get their house protected.
And I just have to say it's a gamble, you know.
Yeah.
And he's, no, it's not. I know what I'm doing.
It doesn't matter. The problem is, sure, he may know what he's doing, but the point is they stop fighting the fire in that area because they can't drop. And most of our fires now are being put out by the planes and the ground crews, but the planes are the significant reason why. Paul?
We recommend that you evacuate as soon as you get a voluntary evacuation order. If you wait until it's mandatory, everybody will be leaving at the same time. It's late at night. People will run out of gas, get into accidents. So leave when it's voluntary, and you know, the CHP and the sheriff's deputies will protect. Won't let anybody into that area. So just leave when it's voluntary.
So the last thing I want to leave you with is that there's a couple of applications that you should be following. One is Watch Duty. This is just it's an app that follows wildfires. It's not perfect, but it is better than nothing. They do kind of tell you what's going on. You can kind of see, it'll say where evacuation centers are opened up. But listen to OES, listen to the radio. OES will tell you where the evacuation centers are being opened, where the Red Cross is opening shelters. So make sure you listen to the radio or make sure you listen to them. There's other applications. Red Cross has an application that's free that also helps you locate your family members if they're in a fire. It also tells you, again, everything I talked about today, gives you a list of how to prepare, how to do a go bag, all that stuff. So there's lots of information out there. Also, you want to also make sure you are on Calaveras County's alert system, and it's what? Everbridge. Thank you. I have to know all the counties, and I'm like, oh, I can't remember. So in Calaveras County, it's Everbridge. You want to be on that system because that's your alert system for this county. And you can go on to your sheriff's department website, and you should be able to sign up for Everbridge there. Okay? I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much. I hope that you all go home and do a little preparation. And hopefully I won't get to see you in a shelter or at your home. Thank you.